It's time for another edition of MetsMusings.
Hi, this is Ron Darling. This is Skip Lockwood.
Hi, I'm Ron Swoboda of the '69 New York Mets, and you're listening to Mets Musings with Gary Mack.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
Hello again and welcome back to another edition of Mets Musings. And today we're going to do our usual early season or beginning of the season kickoff and do our round table. Now, we're missing a leg on the table, but we think we can stand as we do our usual lists of suspects that are joining me this week. And first is my former co-host and a good friend and a great Met fan, Barry Newman. Barry, welcome back.
Thank you, Gary. Good to be back.
And also joining us is the wonderful co-host of Baseball and BBQ, Mr. Jeff Cohen. Jeff, welcome back to you.
Thanks, Larry. And Larry.
Larry.
Thanks. Barry, Gary. I was thinking Leonard, and I got the L in my head. And so, on behalf of Leonard,
No worries.
on behalf of Leonard, I'd like to say, Gary Mack. That's what I meant to do.
Yeah, Leonard couldn't be with us tonight, the other co-host of Baseball and BBQ. And Len, we miss you. So hopefully the next round table we do, you'll be able to join us. We'll try to schedule it when you're available. Well, guys, we're a mere, 48 hours away, something like that, to opening day. Did we think we were going to see this season the way the lockout was going? And are you excited about opening day?
Absolutely. Opening days. I love opening day.
Barry?
Me too. A little tempered by the injury to Jake, but still opening day is, like you guys said, opening day, like a national holiday. And I did not think they would make it to opening day. I thought a good chunk of the season, the way the negotiations, if you even want to call them negotiations, were going. So they got it in. It's only a week late. They're going to play the full 162. And it's always exciting.
However, I don't think it's going to start on Thursday. Looking at the weather forecast, it looks like it might be Friday to begin. 90% chance of rain on Thursday in Washington.
Well, somebody will be starting at least. And if I may say, and I'm not sponsored by them, but if anybody has T-Mobile out there, hopefully it's not too late by the time you hear this podcast. You can get a free season of MLB TV by going to their Tuesday app. So we are recording this on a Tuesday. It went up today, April 5th. And I signed up right away, of course, because I have T-Mobile. So I don't know what you guys got, but it's a good deal. It's it's $140, I think, for the year, and you get it for nothing. So not a bad deal at all. But you have to have T-Mobile for that. And I was just checking because the minor leagues start tonight. Syracuse is in action tonight.
Oh, how about that?
Okay.
As they play, Scranton Wilkes-Barre is playing Syracuse tonight at Syracuse, and they, of course, want me to log in to MILB, and I'm not going to do it right now, so I can't tell you how Syracuse is doing. But, yeah, Syracuse is starting tonight. And odd that the minor leagues are starting a couple of days. Usually it's they start a week after the majors, but I guess with the lockout, that's what's they're on their regular schedule and the majors aren't. Um, so we have a new manager, Mr. Buck Showalter, a new coaching staff. Um, I've said on this show a couple of times already that I've noticed a bit of a change just by watching and observing things in the dugout when they show the dugout and just things on the field and some of the comments the players have made. That there seems to be a different attitude. There seems to be a more professionalism. Is it me, or would you guys agree that you've noticed a difference?
I noticed difference, and I think Buck was probably the biggest acquisition the Mets made over the off season. I know they got Kana and Escobar and Scherzer and Bassett and whoever else, but and McMarte. But Showalter was the biggest acquisition they had. They really brought calmness to the club, a bunch of professionalism and experience that I think that it's really going to benefit the Mets. And he's not going to panic. He knows what he's doing. He's a professional manager.
Jeff, I can't add a thing. You basically said everything that I was going to say. Absolutely, the best thing about the Mets going into 2022 that they did not have prior to is the hiring of Buck Showalter.
Yeah, it's so true that he may have been turned out to be the biggest acquisition. He's a professional. He's been around the block, as you say. Nothing's gonna scare him off or anything like that. So, and even the coaching staff, he seemed to brought in more of a professional type of coaching staff.
Yeah,
Agree.
Cora at third base, Kirby at first. His bench coach is someone who's been with him before.
Chavez as the new hitting
That's
coach.
the hitting coach. I think the bench coach is Sheldon. Was he used to be the bench coach earlier with the Mets.
Yeah.
Name escapes me now though.
That's what happens when you get older. See?
I know.
I can't
Tell me
think of
about
it either.
Sherlock, Glenn
There you
Sherlock.
Yeah, he's been here before, and I think he's a catching coach too, which I think will make a world of difference too. They need to work on some of their defense a little bit there, and so I'm sure you caught some of the games in the spring training. Anybody impress you that you were surprised by? Anything at all that you caught that it was out of the ordinary?
Well, I'm going to say Escobar caught my eye. He seems to be a really true hitter. Knows how to hit. Knows how to play defense. He caught my eye, so I'm very impressed with him. Kana can really go out and get it in the outfield. I think he's a good acquisition as well. But those are the only two that really stood out. I know Francisco Lindor had a decent camp. Robinson Cano, they took him out after a 4-for-4 day to help him feel good. Pete Alonso, I think was struggling a little in camp, but I think he's going to be all right. But yeah, so those are the guys who I watched carefully.
I would add Marte. In fact, I put him first. He just looks like the real deal. Even in his mid-30s, he still has speed. And it looks like they're going to play him in right field, which when you think of it makes sense because right field is the most difficult field to play in Citi Field. So I would say Marte, but I agree with Jeff about Escobar and about Kana, who is a better player than I thought he was. Just looking at the numbers, you wouldn't be that impressed by him. But when you look a little more closely, he has a much higher on-base percentage. And what I didn't know was that he could play all three positions because with the Mets, their three starting outfielders are basically it. If there's an injury, you're putting an infielder into the outfield, which would probably not be the best thing, but they really, at this point, wouldn't have much of the choice. But kind of looks like he could be the backup center fielder. And with Nimmo questionable for opening day, it looks like he may actually get the call there. But I'm impressed with Connor, very impressed with Marte and Escobar, like you said. And it looks like, and we can only hope that this is the real deal, that Cano really is raking. So hopefully he will keep that going into the regular season.
And what does he have? 1 year or 2 year left on the contract? 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, now with the DH, though, I guess he can be used more and, use McNeil. They may have to use McNeil in the outfield now a little bit. So maybe Cano will play some second base, and they can have Escobar play some, and have Davis at third, in some of those games. Any of the young players at all impress you? I was impressed with Alvarez, but I was impressed with him last year as well. Tremendous power. His defense is, needs a little bit of work, but he's 20 years old. I think that's something, if you're willing to work on, you can improve on. You may not be Johnny Bench, but you've just got to be halfway decent behind the plate, and he's got a strong arm, and that's part of it right there. So, question of footwork, and I think it's mainly the low pitches that he has the problem on. And what I would do, remember the old '86 coach Vern? What was it? Hofstad? Hasenstead? I don't know. He was an old white guy. White hair. Remember him? I don't. And he used to be the catching coach. And what he did was he gave the catches, including Gary Carter. He made him do these drills with ping pong paddles. And they had to, they threw balls in the dirt to them, and they had to block them and learn how to use their body. And naturally, the paddles, you have to use both of them to try to get the ball. And they were pretty good on those. So maybe, sometimes you got to go old school with these guys and bring back some of these old things. So any of the young guys impress you at all?
I saw a play the other day, and it was in the outfield. It was center fielder. He was wearing number 9, but it was not Brandon Nimmo. I go, who's number 9? Not Brandon Nimmo. It was Nick Plummer. He made a play, a diving catch. That impressed me. That was a nice catch. I also like watching Brett Beatty hit and Mark Vientos hit, just seeing those young guys coming up, they're the future. And what you said about Alvarez, when I saw that home run he hit, he did look like Mike Piazza with the follow through with the swing. That was great.
Yeah, Alvarez looks like the real deal. He certainly has the power. And like Gary said, at age 20, he should develop and become a better defensive catcher. And, the Mets have a catcher for the next 3 years. In fact, he's not a young player, but I'd have to say, along with McCann, Tomas Nido looked really good this spring. And it would not surprise me if the two of them, if not splitting the catching duties, maybe it goes 60-40, because Nido really looks improved as a hitter, and we know he's a solid defensive player. And with the propensity for McCann to get hurt, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of Tomas Nido behind the plate this year. And yeah, Alvarez looks good. I like Brett Beatty. I see he has a future. One thing I didn't see, and I hope the Mets address this down the road, that they are a little short in the pitching department in the minors, unless it's in the low minors. So that's something I think they're gonna have to deal with.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I just read an article today. I think it was on SNY, and they were talking about the minor leagues, and you're right. They're pretty well packed down in, like the rookie league below Brooklyn. So they're a long way away, but they do have some pitching. Young pitches. They drafted a bunch last year. They'll be in the rookie league, and then maybe we'll see them sometime in Brooklyn. Probably, ones that do well. Um, but they do have. It looks like their farm system is getting stocked, and it's just gonna be, um, a couple of years. But down low, even up top, though, there are some nice players, and we just mentioned a bunch. Vientos, not pitchers, but you've got Vientos, and you got Batty, and you've got Alvarez, and
Ronnie
my
Mercio.
guess, yeah, my guess is Maurizio and Alvarez will be at Binghamton last year. They both spent a good chunk of the year at Brooklyn last year. They'll probably be at Binghamton this year, and Vientos and maybe Batty too will probably be at Syracuse. I don't know how that broke out so far, but we'll see. But and Vientos, they're moving around the field, so he's been playing third and first and some corner outfield. So they're trying to make him more versatile, so that could help if he has a good year. He's got good power too.
Mm-hmm.
So and he's not going to unseat Batty. I think they're saving third base for Batty, really. So and they both played on the same teams, and they've managed to work them in the lineup. So we'll have to see how that all goes. But any weak spots do you see other than the starting pitching? Now I know because of the injuries, the starting pitching is a question mark. The only thing I will say about it is that the guys that they have backing up right now, and I'm talking specifically about McGill and
Peterson.
Peterson and Williams.
Yamamoto.
They have major league experience, and that's a big thing. So they're not going to, it's not like you're bringing in a rookie kid and he's standing in front of 50,000 people and he's going to be nervous. These guys now they're young and they've been through it. McGill I thought he was really good last year, and Peterson struggled last year, but he's I think he'll find himself somewhere along the line, and they still have Zapucki who could fill in, and some other guys in Syracuse. So I'm not too concerned. I'm concerned about DeGrom. Scherzer, he says he's going to pitch the second game, which may be the first game now.
Maybe the first game
with the rain. Any thoughts along those lines at all?
I'd rather have DeGrom for the last half of the year than the first half of the year.
Right.
You know what, though? His injuries are now, I don't want to say chronic, but you worry every time he makes a start. After every start, does he go back into the MRI tube? It's going to be something. He's very confident once he gets past this, he's going to be injury free, but who knows? I mean, he's still thinking about opting out to get a bigger contract. And listen, best pitcher in the world, he should get paid as the best. A lot of people, some pitchers make more than him, and I understand why. Although no one's going to be throwing him a fundraiser to, for anything. But he's got to think twice about opting out. I mean, if he keeps getting hurt, go on a disabled list 2-3 times a year, it's not going to help him. And look. $30 million a year, still not a bad shekel.
Yeah, Jeff, you may not want to say chronic, but the numbers are starting to trend that way.
Mm-hmm.
From what I saw the other day, in the past 21 months, he's had 11 different injuries. Now, to me, if that's not chronic, that's pretty close. And in addition, he's 6'4". He's slightly built, like maybe 175, 180 pounds. And the human body was just not built to throw a baseball overhand 100 miles an hour 100 times every 5 days. So it is a major concern as far as I'm concerned. And I was worried about that even before he got hurt, yet even while he was pitching lights out in spring training with that body and his recent history, you always wonder. Ron Darling often says that every pitcher knows that any pitch they throw could be their last.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a major concern. As far as him even talking about opting out, I have to say I'm a little disappointed that it's not DeGrom like. He's usually the quiet, reserved guy who just, he's laid back and lets things come to him. Unlike another pitcher that the Mets had last year, who is now a teammate of the other position where I'm most concerned about is, and of course I'm talking about Aaron Loop. That's a position that the Mets, I think, are going to possibly really struggle. I mean, Aaron Loop had a historic season as the lefty in the pen last year, and unfortunately they did not have a general manager. He was signed very quickly, but he may be the biggest and toughest player to replace on the Mets this season. Overall, I think the bullpen is okay. Not great, but not terrible. But they need a shutdown lefty that's at least close to what Aaron Loop gave them last year.
Well, I will just say this about Aaron Loop. I mean, he had a great season last year, but bullpens is fickle. He might not be that same guy. It's going to be very hard to repeat a bullpen year after year after year.
True.
So, I think that for the money that he got, good for him. He got $17 million to go pitch one inning every 2-3 days. Not bad, but
not bad.
Will he replicate what he did? I don't know. But then again, you have a crazy owner out there in California who signs pitchers who threw only 2 innings for 2 years and gives them $21 million. So.
Well, he looked good the other night. I was watching a little bit of the game on MLB Network. He was pitching. I forget who they were playing now. It was the Dodgers, I believe. And he looked pretty good. And then they started getting to him in the third inning. He gave up a couple of hits, and he came out of the game. But he looked like he was throwing pretty free and easy. So, Barry, you mentioned it about DeGrom throwing 100 miles an hour. Is it time for him to cut back a little bit? Maybe throw 96, 95 and work on more of the breaking stuff or the other type of, in other words, instead of being a thrower, is it time to become a pitcher?
You know what, Gary and Jeff, with DeGrom, you think of him as a pitcher and a thrower, someone that's that good, knows how to pitch. But again, the human body just is not conditioned to throw 100 miles an hour, 100 pitches every 5th day overhand. As far as becoming a pitcher, maybe he should dial it back to maybe to 95. Maybe he's tried to dial it back, and maybe, and this may sound crazy, but maybe he just can't do it. I mean, to you and I, 95 to 100 miles an hour pretty much look the same. Now, of course, to a major league hitter, it's very different. Maybe Jake is afraid that he would not succeed if he dialed it back to 95. Don't know.
Well, there have been
speculating.
There have been successful pitchers who threw hard for a very long time. Randy Johnson comes to mind. Nolan Ryan comes to mind. I mean, they probably hadn't we don't know how much they were throwing because they didn't have the technology back then, but they could have been in the high 90s and 100s all the time. They didn't break down. So every individual is different. I agree with Barry that he probably should dial it back a little. But, as long as he's throwing nice and easy and not putting any extra stress, which I know, look, he's gotten hurt. But who knows how the human body works with him? Everybody's different.
But guys, can't you see when they start rehabbing DeGrom, something else pops up? I mean, 11 separate injuries in 21 months is a major red flag. I mean, I hate to be, especially on MetsMusing keep the faith, stay optimistic. It's really not easy with DeGrom, considering this run of injuries that he's had, and he hasn't had surgery on any of them. It actually might have been better if he had the surgery and had a rehab and maybe come back afterward. I mean, this is just so annoying and so frustrating. I'm sure he's frustrated. And then maybe part of why he talks about opting out is the frustration he's feeling. Because this isn't the Jake DeGrom that I knew and loved. It's a different guy.
Well, regardless of his status, I still think the Mets probably have the best pitching in the division. I don't see anybody who is as deep with Scherzer, Tiamat Walker, Carrasco, and McGill, Peterson, Zapucki, Trevor Williams, blah blah blah. I think they have the deepest starting rotation with or without DeGrom. I don't think they can out-hit the Phillies or the Braves. They have, I think, a better offense, but I think the Mets pitching is still superior, at least in the starting pitching. And I think that like bullpen's okay. I mean, who knows what this Joely Rodriguez is going to do? They did keep Jason Shreve, so they have two lefties out of the pen. Maybe that could, neutralize the Juan Sotos, the Bryce Harpers, the Greg Olsons of the world.
And I'm a little concerned about the outfield, though. It's old. It's not, especially if Nimmo's out. It's an old outfield, and I know Canha can play all three positions, but is he an everyday player? Marte is good, but 33. We got scared at the beginning of spring training with the oblique. And is that going to rise up again somewhere? He's been playing well and running and doing everything, and it doesn't seem to bother him. So hopefully that's in the past, and that was more, precaution than anything else. But the outfield scares me because there's nobody there. Then we're talking about a Travis Jankowski who's made the team, and McNeil or Dom Smith or J.D. Davis. And those are your backups for the outfield. And
you're going to need them. You're going to need them because Brandon Nimmo, who knows? I mean, he's only played 100 games once in his career. And now he's what, 28, 29 years old now? Going to be a free agent at the end of the year. And, Mr. Boris, who, by the way, did not do any favors for Mr. Conforto. That's for sure.
No, he didn't.
No.
And, he's now hurt with a neck injury. So he might miss the opening day. So, Nimmo, I love Nimmo. I think he's great. Speaking, I've talked to him, and he's a great guy. But, he can't stay on the field consistently.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the outfield, but I'm more concerned about the starting pitching. And Jeff, I think Atlanta's pitching is clearly above the Mets, especially now that they're getting Mike Soroka back this year, and to put him with Anderson and Fried, and that in that bullpen. Although, like you said, bullpens do fluctuate from year to year, but on paper, that Atlanta bullpen, now that they have Kenley Jansen to close, and they can move Will Smith, not that Will Smith, the relief pitcher Will Smith, the lefty.
The other Will Smith.
They can move him back to a setup role, and they have those other two lefties whose names escape me. I think Matzik is one of them. The ones that just...
Well, Luke Jackson just got hurt. Luke Jackson just got hurt. Mike Soroka is still on the 60-day DL. So
he's not back.
He's not back yet.
Okay, my mistake. All right, well, having heard that, I will say that the Mets pitching, obviously with a healthy DeGrom, there's no question, but with a questionable DeGrom, and I guess you'd have to say a questionable Scherzer, it's hard to put them at the top of the list. As far as the Phillies, and who would have thunk that the one Met from those days in 2015, 2016 that would end up being the healthiest would turn out to be Zach Wheeler, of all people. But with Wheeler and Nola, at the top of that rotation, the Phillies have a pretty good, at least beginning of a starting rotation. After that, not so much. And of course, we know their bullpen is very questionable. So when you put it together, I don't really think maybe Atlanta, even without Soroka, because of the bullpen, might have a slight edge on the other two. But they are comparable. The Mets bullpen, you know, we know the names.
Well, you know what we haven't talked about it is Edwin Diaz. I guess that's a good thing. Seriously, I think it's we haven't talked about him, so I think he's going to be okay. Bring on the trumpets.
Well, Gary, what say you?
Well, I still think it's the worst trade, but we shall see how he has a good year or not. I'm just concerned that he's going to be one of these guys that'll have a great year, and then if they do make the playoffs, he'll pull a Armando Benitez or a Dries Familia and disappear. That's the only fear I have. I'm okay with the bullpen. Like Jeff said, bullpens come and go. They could stink one year and you can bring back. The Philly bullpen could be great this year. They were so horrible last year. They could be, for some reason that we can't fathom, that bullpens change. So on the spot, all of a sudden the guys start pitching like Cy Young and getting people out. So you never really know. I mean, none of this you really. Some of the best teams. The pedigree that they have, and you can. We know the Dodgers are going to be there. I'm not too sure about the Giants, though. Was that a fluke last year? They had a lot of guys you never heard of. Can they put it together again this year? Who knows? But I just the outfield does concern me, and I just feel the age now. The infield seems pretty sound, and the defense, it seems like a pretty good defensive unit. Not as good as the late 90s with Olerud and Alfonso and Ordonez and Ventura. Nothing on that level, but it seems like a good solid. Alonso's made himself into a good fielding good, adequate.
Well, let's put that to bed. Let's address that right now, because he came into the league with a bad reputation as a bad fielder. He's a very good first baseman. Is he a Gold Glover yet? No, but on a scale of 1 to 10, is he a 7 or 8? Yeah, he can field his position. Mm-hmm. So he's not that bad.
And pray tell, why did it take Buck Showalter becoming the manager of the Mets to have maybe the greatest defensive first baseman in the history of the game, Keith Hernandez, work with Alonso in spring training? It's not like Keith Hernandez just got there. I mean, why wouldn't you use someone with his expertise and experience?
Well, that's an interesting point, because in the past he has worked with some guys. Now, whether the guys asked him, he worked with Daniel Murphy when Murphy moved to first base. That's true. And he did work. I
think Duda also.
Yeah, he did work with Duda, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
This is not necessary. I know what you're saying, because they made a big deal that this was the first time they ever asked him, and I seem to remember these other times. Now, maybe the players asked him. I don't know, and he got permission from the club. That could be too. And this time, Showalter wanted him. But you see, again, I think it shows you the professionalism of Showalter. He wants the old guys around. He wants the history around him. They said he wanted Hernandez at batting practice, and that they would sit or stand behind the batting cage and talk about hitting all the time. I think Showalter's confident in his ability, And let's face it, he's been around 20 some odd years coach or managing. He's made some nice bucks. He knows he can go to MLB Network or ESPN or somewhere. So he's not worried about his job. I think the last couple of managers, um, I think they managed to not lose instead of managing to win. They were afraid of losing, that they'd lose their job, and they lost their jobs anyway. There just seems to be a difference with Showalter when you see him in the dugout. It's like looking at the Eisenhower in old World War II movies, where you knew he was the commander of the Allied forces, and I was a history major, so that's why I go there. But you know what I'm saying? He's got the pad. He's writing notes. He's taking notes. He's talking to guys. He just looks like he's in control. It was funny. This was a discussion I had with an old friend of mine years ago, about the Jets. When you used to look at the Jets, and we'd say, they got a good line, they got this, that, and the other thing, and the quarterback, though, you watch Joe Montana. Joe Montana would go into a huddle. Joe Montana was in charge. He didn't, care if some guy was 6'10" and 400 pounds. He'd tell him, you missed the play, you dope, or something like that. You could tell, And then you watch the Jets quarterback, Ken O'Brien. It was almost like he was going into a huddle, and he was saying, hey, guys, what would you like to run? What would you like to do? It's the same kind of thing that I noticed with Showalter, that he just exudes that, in charge. I don't know if I'm exaggerating because I want it to be that way, but, what's your guys' opinion?
Is he
I
checking
agree
the
100%.
Is he checking the
Absolutely.
iPads? Is he checking the iPad or the computer, or is he on the Apple Watch making all these calculations?
I don't think no. He's got his clipboard and he's writing notes down. So
Good.
he's real old school.
Good. And I hope he doesn't allow the iPads in the dugout.
You know what I say? I would like to see the pitchers go back to charting a game, like they used to in the old days, and it wasn't that long ago.
No.
Because I think that puts a whole different perspective. And I'd like to see the batters keep their book on different pitchers. They used to say the first baseman, Carlos
Delgado.
Delgado, thank you. He used to have quite a thick book, and he would keep a book on the different pitchers. And Gary Carter used to keep a book on his own pitchers of what they threw in situations and stuff, so he knew what to call. I think they rely too much on the freaking video and analytics now, and I hope that they do away with that a little bit.
Yep.
And I still say, if I might get my 2 cents in, that they ruined Michael Conforto last year. I think Conforto came in, he had COVID, then he had the was it a hamstring issue, or and I think he started slow, and he just got lost in all the video and the information they were giving him, and they said that analytic people were coming into the meetings. Instead of the coaches being there deciphering the information and giving them what they thought was, they said the analytic people were there and feeding them all kinds of stuff. So, like Yogi Berra said, hitting is 90% perspiration and 50% inspiration or something.
Right.
So I don't think you can't think when you're up there. I mean, you have to have a plan, yes, all of that kind of stuff. But I just think that's what happened with Conforto last year, and I think they should try to grab him again.
I was just going to ask you guys that, in light of the injury to Nimmo, with day to day with the Mets, sometimes being they're out 3-4 months. Would it be the craziest thing to put a call into Conforto, maybe give him a 1-year contract, try to rebuild his reputation?
I
Because I'm shocked he hasn't signed on with anybody in light of the Mets
yeah.
situation. Like you said, the backup outfielders are basically infielders. And also, I think we need to do a roundtable strictly on yogiisms, nothing else.
Well, you know what? I don't. I just don't see it
Anyway,
happening.
back to Conforto.
I just don't see it happening.
Me
Mets,
neither.
Mets have
Me
the second
neither.
highest payroll. I know it's Steve
Yeah,
Cohen has
I
all the money in
know.
the world, but they're still you got to run a business. And
Yeah.
look, he had the chance to come back for $18 million. He said no. Is he going to take something less? I don't know. I mean, he could have had $100 million deal, and he turned it down, thinking he was going to get more. You know what? If he offered 9 figures, you take it. I don't care. I don't care if
Yeah.
you can get 100
Yeah.
million. 20, you take the money.
I get, I guess he figured his numbers would be better and he'd go out and get a better contract from somebody or from the Mets. So I can't say that I blame him completely. We're looking back now at it in hindsight, and
True.
we don't know what the thought process was. And it was early in the year. He probably figured, I'll get healthy, I'll hit 400 the rest of the way, or 350, and I'll have my usual numbers, and I'll be all right. And I just think he got buried. And maybe that's why he doesn't want to come back. I don't know. Who knows?
Look, I like Conforto. I never thought of him as a guy who can carry the team for an extended period. He's no Mookie Betts. He's not that type of player. He's gonna have his struggles, and he'll carry the team for 2 weeks, and that'll be it. And I like him, but he's not gonna carry the team.
But he's a solid player.
He's streaky. He's streaky.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's streaky. But he's solid. He turned himself into a good defender as well.
True.
And I think if he went back to hitting the way he hit when he first came up, or the way he hit in the minors in Brooklyn, I mean, the guy used the whole field. He hit it all over the place. I think they got him into his head when he hit the 30 home runs, and they wanted him to hit everything out. And I just think if he goes back to the way he used to, we always say this, the home runs will come. If you have the strength, the home runs will come. You'll connect and you'll hit the home run. It's the hits when you don't feel that well or something, and maybe you're not feeling as strong one day as you did the day before, and that's when you need to help your team anyway by going different fields and getting on base and moving the lineup. And I just think he would be all right. I would take the gamble though, if like I said before, to answer your question, Barry, and I don't think it's that big a deal to bring him back. But again, Scott Boras, he's a tough guy. He doesn't, he don't. But I can see this being Stephen Drew all over again, and he'll never make that money back. And the other thing, the other point I wanted to make, and this scares me to say this, but I almost see DeGrom going down the same route as Tim Lincecum in a way.
Mm.
Won a couple of Cy Youngs.
Same body type.
Same body type. Then the injuries started coming and really took a promising career. And I'm hoping not. I'm hoping maybe he gets through this. Maybe he'll get a string of good luck where he won't get hurt for a couple of years, and and really establish himself in the perennials, higher echelon of the game. But he hasn't even won. He hasn't won 100 games yet because he hasn't played. He hadn't won that many. Because of how many games they lost for him in the bullpen when he, pitched beautifully, came out, and then the bullpen blew it. So, but
or he left with the score tied 0-0.
yeah, or that as well. Well, speaking of 0-0, the offense we mentioned before, we don't think it's as good as the Braves or the Phillies, but overall, are you happy with it? It looks like it's a contending offense. Barry, I'll let you start this time.
Well, I'm going to make this one simple, and I'm going to defer to Jeff because if he said it once, he said it numerous times. Like you said, on paper, the offense looks fine. It comes down to getting the big hit, getting that runner in from third with less than 2 outs, and of course, runners in scoring position. On paper, the Mets have had solid offenses for quite a few years, but it hasn't translated to enough runs. And if they don't get the big hit with runners in scoring position, they're not going anywhere. Hopefully, they'll do better this time around. On paper, it looks like they should be okay, and they certainly have depth this time around. They have, they can, between Cano and Smith and JD, you want to throw Kana and Nimmo into the mix. They should be able to get 400, 450 at-bats out of all of them if they distribute the playing time right. And with a manager like Buck, you don't really have to worry about that. And the big question for me is, what are we going to get from Francisco Lindor this year? Is he going to be a Carlos Beltran type player who will be great in his second year, or is his career really going the wrong way? We'll find out.
Yeah, I agree with Barry. I think that Carlos, that Francisco Lindor, I think is going to have a bounce back year. I think it's going to be kind of like Carlos Beltran without the cheating, and and he's going to have a very good year. Hopefully an all-star year, I think, but he'll be very good. I think once Brandon Nimmo is an everyday player, can stay on the field, I think that helps the offense if he can play more than 100 games. What I like seeing what Starling Marte did. And he didn't play station to station. He took the extra base. He stole bases. That was the big problem last year, or previous seasons, taking the extra base, going first to third, going second to home. They just didn't do that, and they were waiting for the big hit, which never came. I mean, how many times have we, waited for that big hit? Second and third, 1 out, walk, double play, done. I mean, that's what happens.
Yeah.
They're all waiting for that big hit, but stop playing station to station. Take the extra base when you can. Be aggressive. Hey, they're giving you third base wide open. Take it. Get on base, move the guys around. And I think Brandon Nimmo and Starling Marte are going to be the engines that are going to be the table setters, and Francisco Lindor and P. Alonso are going to be the guys to drive him in. I'm really hoping that Lindor has a big year. I really do.
And they have some speed at the top. I mean, if they have Nimmo and Marte and Lindor, I mean, there's some good speed there. And, you really don't need speed to steal the base. It certainly helps, but there is technique involved. Not that the technique's ever worked for me, but that's another story. But they do have that. It's a pretty well-balanced lineup. I've been impressed with Escobar, too. I think he's played, they say, again, the knock was his defense. And, the games that I saw, he played pretty good at third. I didn't see anything, he wasn't a concrete hands down there or anything. Made the basic plays, and his hitting, he's been a breath of fresh air with the hitting, the bat, and he's got a little speed too. So um, you brought up, you guys mentioned earlier about Nito, and Nito won a batting title at St. Lucie couple of years ago. Now, so he does have the ability. Um, Now I can remember in Brooklyn he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and um, I have to tell you, to be honest, I was surprised when they did call him up the first time, because I thought for sure he was going to be one of those guys that they get to Brooklyn and then they cut him loose, but he kept working his way through the system, and I think he made it on defense. He was a good defensive catch, and he kept working his way up. And congrats. Then he had the big year at St. Lucie with the bat, and I think that carried him into Double A and Triple A and to the majors. And God bless him. He's gotten some nice hits, and he's a good defensive catcher, and I really like the guy. I think he's like the perfect prototype backup catcher.
Yeah.
He's the pitches like throwing to him and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm okay. McCann, I can't figure out yet. I still can't figure him out. I think he's still trying to find out what happened to his bats that he left in Chicago, I guess, because the ones he brought with him aren't any good. But maybe he figures it out. But he's a pretty decent catcher too. So if they have to make it up somewhere else, and now with the DH, we'll see what that does. I think they have a number of people they can move into the spot that can handle it, and we'll see. And if Cano keeps hitting, be egg on my face, I guess. But that goes without saying. So,
Well, they're not going to cut him. That's out with that contract.
They might
That's
cut
not
him
happening.
No,
They might cut him next year, though.
Maybe,
Or
but
1 year
there
to
should
go.
be enough at bats to go around for all of them. And I feel a little sorry for Dom Smith, because he certainly should. He has the talent to be an everyday player, and unfortunately, he's blocked at first base by Alonso. He's not a true outfielder, so that basically leaves DH for him. And of course, the Mets have several DH types whose best position would be DH. And I guess you could say the same for JD Davis. Hopefully, there will be enough at bats to go around for all of them, and they'll play the hot hand. But again, this is where having Buck Showalter running the team gives the Mets a huge advantage from previous seasons.
I have an out of the box question for you guys. You talked about the outfield. There's a guy out there who was designated for assignment by the Angels. Justin Upton's available. Now, I wouldn't take him until he's cleared waivers. So if you have to pay him, let the Angels pay him. But what do you think about picking up Justin Upton once he comes available?
He's kind of a funny player, because he'll have big years and then he'll hit 130 the next year or something. You know what? It's not a bad idea though if you get him relatively cheap. You bring him in. He's got speed. Defensively, he was always pretty decent. As a gamble, I don't see why not.
Yeah, especially someone else is paying him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's not the craziest idea. When you mentioned the name Justin Upton, I have that image of him hitting that home run in that game against the Mets when he was a member of the Padres, when they blew the 7-1 lead the night after Wilberforce was traded. So it's kind of hard to get that image out of my head. But to answer your question, you know what? Why not? On a trial basis for a couple of weeks. If he still got it, great. If not, then you can let him go. And like Jeff said, your uncle has all the money in the world. So to give him a 1-year deal for whatever, like $3-4 million. You know what? Why not? And also, the Mets don't really have a legitimate backup right-hand hitting outfielder, so he would fill that role.
Yeah. You mentioned Dom Smith a minute ago. Um, this is getting off track a little bit. What about that trade that almost wasn't, or almost was, and fell through at the last minute?
Mm.
Thank goodness, I think. What did you guys think of that proposal, as it were?
Let me take that one first, because thank God that trade proposal didn't come or go through. Because if we're talking about an image of Justin Upton hitting that home run, what about Eric Hosmer scoring that tying run in Game 5 of the World Series? Thanks, but no thanks. And why they would want Hosmer? It's not like he can. The only position he plays is first base. I don't ever remember him playing the outfield. So why would they want that guy? And as far as Paddock, he had the great rookie season, and he's been terrible the past 2 years. So thankfully, that trade, at least for now, did not come through. It'd be great for Dom, but not so great for the Mets.
Yeah, no, they weren't going to keep Hosmer anyway. They were going to flip him. I think the trade didn't happen because they couldn't find a trading partner for Hosmer. Once they got him, there was no way they were going to keep him. Mm-hmm. So they were going to try to trade him, and I guess they couldn't find anybody to trade him with. Paddock. I know he had a good year a couple of years ago. Could Jeremy Hefner rediscover what he had? Who knows? But I like Dom. Dom should play every day somewhere. It's just not going to be here. And, good for us, I guess, unless we can get another, pitcher in here somehow for Dom Smith, a good major league type pitcher. No projects.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree too. I thought it was I couldn't figure out where they would play Hosmer, and then I thought the same thing. They were going to try to flip him, or one of those deals where they'll take him and then DFA him or something, and just eat the money because they wanted to get the pitcher, but the pitcher wasn't that. Wasn't top of the line guy, and then they were mentioning getting a relief pitcher as well, but I'm kind of glad it fell through as well. All right, I guess it's time for that crystal ball to come out, polish it up, and I don't know if you want to do all the leagues or just the Mets wins, but any suggestions?
I'm game to do it all. I have my notes, so I'm good.
I'm good to go too.
All right, I've got to find mine somewhere, but I will allow you guys to start. And if I don't find my paper, you can listen to the last episode of the Baseball Talk Radio Show that I co-host with Rich Baxter of Fighting Phillies Talk, and we gave our picks for the season there, so you can listen to my picks there. But I'll let you guys start off. Who wants to go first?
Barry, go ahead.
Okay. In the National League, the senior circuit, I have the division winners as Atlanta, the Cardinals, because they have a winning season all the time. And of course, in the NL West, I don't see anybody beating the Dodgers. And my 3 wildcard teams are, I have the Mets. I'm cautiously optimistic. Of course, an injury to DeGrom that ends up him not pitching this year, or very, very little, would change that. But for now, I'm going to try and stay optimistic and say that we get him back for at least part of the season. So I have the Mets as the first wildcard team. I have them playing the Phillies as the second wildcard team. And the final spot, it came down to 3 teams. It came down to the Giants, the Brewers, and the San Diego Padres. And I went with San Diego for a lot of the same reasons that I picked the Mets. They have Bob Melvin back in the dugout, a real manager for a change, a lot of talent, good pitching. They don't have Fernando Tatis for a couple of months, but they have a solid team anyway. So I'm going to give them the final wild card spot. As far as the pennant winning team, I'm going to say LA Atlanta will do the version of Ollie Frazier round 3. And I'm picking the Dodgers to win the pennant. In the American League, I'm going to go a little outside the box. And Gary, I think you're going to like this one. But we'll start with the AL East. I've got the Toronto Blue Jays, who look loaded this year, as the division winners. I have the White Sox winning the AL Central and in the AL West. And I think they're going to win by a substantial margin. They made some big moves this offseason, signed a couple of free agent pitchers. I believe Robbie Ray is their ace now. They have a couple of other good stars, including Chris Flexen, which stunned me. But I'm going to say that the Seattle Mariners end this 20-plus year playoff drought and win the American League Western Division. And my wild card teams, I have the Rays, I have the Red Sox, and the final spot over the Astros and the Yankees, I have the Minnesota Twins taking that final wild card position. And for the pennant, I have Seattle and Toronto battling it out. And I'm going to take the Mariners to win the American League pennant. And I'm actually going to take them to beat the Dodgers and win the World Series with Paul Sewell striking out Freddie Freeman for the final out of the 2022 World Series. There you go.
Well, I didn't get that detail, but Jeff, your turn.
You know what? I think mine's going to be eerily similar to Barry's, with a couple of changes. I'm with the National League, the East. I'm going with the New York Mets because I just can't help myself. The Central, I'm going with the Cardinals, like Barry. With the West, I know this is going to be a shock, but it's going to be the Dodgers.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? And for my wild cards, I have the Braves. I'm going to go with the Giants. I think they're going to have another good year. And for the last wild card spot, I'm going with the Philadelphia Phillies. In the American League, the East, I have the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, Barry, I think they're loaded. I think they're loaded. Central, I have the White Sox. In the West, I have the Houston Astros because I just don't see anybody catching them. My wild cards, I have the Rays. I have the Minnesota Twins. And for the final spot, and this is going way outside the box there, I am going with, this is way out in left field, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I'm thinking, with a healthy Ohtani, a healthy Trout, a healthy Rondon, maybe Syndergaard does have something. I'll give it a shot. And if you're going to go World Series, right now I have the Mets over the Blue Jays. Again, I'm glutton for punishment, but that could change depending on the, I guess, the COVID protocols in Canada if the players can get up there. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have the Mets over the Blue Jays because I want to stay optimistic. I want to keep the faith.
Well, it would be nice and hopefully be good for ratings, but I found my list and I will give it, but please go listen to or watch the Baseball Talk radio show as well with myself and Rich Baxter. I've got in the NL East, I've got the Atlanta Braves because, well, nobody's beat them yet. So I'm going to go with Atlanta. In the Central, same thing. I've got the Milwaukee Brewers because they were good last year. I think they can do it again. And I'm going to go with Milwaukee. In the West, another shocker. the Dodgers. I'm going to pick the LA Dodgers. My 3 wild cards, and I don't really have them. I wasn't as good as you guys. I didn't put them in order, but I have the San Francisco Giants, the Philadelphia Phillies, and the New York Mets. Those are my 3 wild cards. For the AL East, I have the winner there is, and I like the Blue Jays, but I couldn't fit them in, and I got to go with Tampa because they always seem to find a way to do it in the playoffs and in the season. So I'm going to go with them. I'm going with the White Sox in the Central. And Barry, I'm going to agree with you in the West. I'm going with the Seattle Mariners. My 3 wild cards are the Twins, the Astros, and the Red Sox. And forgot the Blue Jays completely, but I haven't picked any winners since 1985. So my World Series matchup is the LA Dodgers versus the Tampa Rays, and I've got the Tampa Rays coming home with the title. So that's my picks.
Interesting. Nobody picked the
as
Yankees.
they are.
Nobody picked the Yankees.
Picked the Yankees. No. Wins.
Hooray for us.
How many wins are the Metsies going to get this year?
Let's see. I think between 89 and 91. So that's what, 90?
Barry?
I'll go 88. But that will be enough to get him into one of the wild card positions. I'm pretty confident with that.
And I'm going to go with 89. So we're all in the same neighborhood there. That's good. And as I said, opening day is just a couple of days away. And I want to thank you guys for taking the time out of your evening tonight and joining me and doing this roundtable. Sorry, Len, he couldn't be here, but hopefully he'll be with us the next time. And until we meet again, remember to keep the faith and to stay optimistic, and let's go Mets. And I'm Gary Mack, and I'll see you next time on another edition of Mets Musings.